Before we begin, I just want to point out the shirt that I'm wearing for today's video. This is the Ninja for a Cure shirt. For those of you who don't know, the Ninja for a Cure is a group that helps raise money and awareness for breast cancer research. And it is headed by A&W competitor Henry Ferrarin. You might have seen my interview with him earlier this year at the National Ninja League Finals. And one of the things that I did while there was I purchased this shirt from him. And I had actually met up with him at the Philadelphia Regional, and I had promised him that I would make sure to wear the shirt at least one time for one of my A&W review episodes. And so, here you go. If you want to help support the cause, check out ninjaforcure.com. Link will be in the description. But, with that said, hello, my name is William, and I am here to talk to you about the American Ninja Warrior Las Vegas Finals. Stage 1, Part 2. In however much time I choose, starting now. No limits, no time limits for Vegas, baby. Why? Because it's Vegas. So this was the second half of Stage 1, and here we got to see all the remaining competitors take on the first stage, except for the ones that they cut, which there were quite a bit, actually. By my count, they only showed 74 of the 97 competitors, but we'll talk about that at the end. I got a full list of everyone, of how they did, just to kind of see, make sure everyone gets their due. But so for Part 2, in the intro, another one of those intros that I'm never the biggest fan of, just because of their choice of music. But they made sure to highlight Barclay, and Nagi Richardson, Drechsel, Meagan Martin, Lance Pekus, and Jake Murray. Basically, that's the whole. Basically, they're the ones who got like the little talking bits in the intro. So we started off with Alex Carson. He's a tuba maker. He's a tuba player and a baker who makes cheesecakes. This profile, it was all right. It went long. This was one of those profiles where I was like, yeah, this really could have been wrapped up a lot sooner than it actually was. But the big theme for this run is that if he clears, Matt and Akbar get to eat cheesecake. Wouldn't be the first time they had a eating challenge involved, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So he looked good at first, but he had a bit of a rough landing on Jeep Run, and basically he had 45 seconds left at the warped wall, and he looked gas. I think that's the other thing, is that like you're watching him get through this run and stuff, and it's like he just looked completely tired and just completely like winded and out of it. And he unfortunately he ran out of time on the last obstacle. Did he fall or did he time out? He indeed fell, but he fell with like no time left. He was about to time out anyway. But in the end, both Matt and Akbar, they got to eat the cheesecake anyway, or rather, they chose to eat the cheesecake anyway. The cheeky buggers that they are. And then we got Booty Cochran, the 105-pound man. They did just a recap of like who he is. Lives in the woods, chops wood, all that stuff. Get on the booty bandwagon. He had a bit of a scary situation on the Archer Alley, but he ended up going out on the double dipper. He pretty much just missed the second bar completely. So, unfortunately, the bandwagon has officially ended. But this was his best year ever, so he should be proud and happy with his progress. So good for him. And so after the commercial break was the big Jessie Graff reveal. And for why she's not competing. Basically, they cut to a video that she made, and the reason that she's not competing is that Jessie is working as a stunt woman on Wonder Woman 1984. That's what it's called, right? Yeah, 1984. Okay. Had to double check just to make sure. I gotta say, Matt put out that tweet last week saying, basically heavily hinting at Wonder Woman, and I thought it was a red herring, a ruse, a distraction from what the actual announcement is. But considering now that we know that she actually is competing, not competing, stunting for Wonder Woman, I think it's actually kind of, like, honestly, I think it's kind of crappy that Matt essentially spoiled her announcement before she got to tell everyone what she was doing. Like, I get that, A&W is known for spoiling things ahead of time, but, like, this, I don't know, I didn't like that. Like, I was surprised that she said she was doing Wonder Woman just because I genuinely didn't think Iceman would do that. So, not a fan of him spoiling the run. So, I think this is now a good time to talk about at least a few alternates. I didn't go through like all the list, but I think there's two kind of notable replacements. In this for Vegas, Jessie was replaced by Emily Durham, who was the third place woman in Miami. Another thing that I mentioned is that you might remember from last week I mentioned that Tiana Webberly was seemingly out of nowhere in crutches, and I wasn't sure why. So apparently, sometime between then being LA and the taping of Vegas, Tiana sadly broke her leg and could not compete, which really sucks. Like, that was a real bummer, because Tiana, she's definitely one of the better women, I would say, on the course. And so Zanique Lavette took her place in Vegas. Unfortunately, both Emily and Zanique failed Archer Alley. You wouldn't know that because they both got cut, but according to A&W Nation, that's where they failed. I was kind of thinking about the whole Jessie thing, and it's like, so Jessie was in the top 15 in Miami, and I was kind of thinking to myself, so technically, unless Emily was like in 16th place, which I don't think she was, but let's just say, for argument's sake, that she was in 16th place. That she was in 16th place. I was kind of thought it was kind of weird. If you want to get super technical, with Jessie not being able to compete, shouldn't that technically mean that both Emily and the male who finished in 16th place get a spot because of how the women's rule works for regionals? I guess that's just kind of splitting hairs, but that's how it is, I guess. Then they went with Emily. And who knows? Maybe there is a dude on this list that I just didn't realize didn't qualify, but I doubt it. Apparently, Jessie backing out of Vegas was actually like super last minute too. I think it was. I read like they started filming like a week before Vegas was filmed, so a bit of unfortunate timing. I guess the main question is like, would Jessie have been able to clear if she competed? I'd like to say yes. I think she could have, but we'll never know, unfortunately, because you can you can make theories as much as you want, but unless the person runs the course itself, you'll never know for sure. If it was obvious, they wouldn't run the course in the first place. So that's everything I wanted to say about the whole Jessie thing. It sucks that she didn't get to compete, and hopefully she'll be back next year to be able to compete and do even more and do even better. Anyway, back to the show. They then had Abby Clark. Basically, they talked about her profile knew who she was until she did well in Minneapolis, which actually might be true. Abby, like, for example, Abby competed in National Ninja League this year. She might have competed in other years, too, because I was looking at the footage. I'm trying to remember if I saw her name or not on the old list. It kind of blends together. Like, it actually is kind of interesting when you go back and watch some of the, well, at least for me, when I go back and watch some of that old Season 1 National Ninja League footage and you see who competed. Like, did you know Nagi Richardson was in Season 1 of National Ninja League? That was before he became big. And so was, like, yeah, I remember, like, Sharton Darling Hammond was there, and I'm sure there was other people there who I'm not thinking of at the top of my head. So for Abby, slightly, she got a little stuck on Archer Alley, a little bit on the rope. She had a bit of a scary grab on the propeller bars and just kind of hard grabbing the rope. She ended up wasting a lot of time with the first two obstacles, and there was a real kind of question of, like, you know, will she be able to clear? I don't know. Maybe she will. But I guess we'll never know, because she basically ended up missing the second bar on the double dipper, and she was eliminated. Now is probably a good time as any to kind of talk about the double dipper itself. One of the things that I imagine you might be wondering after last week's episode is why so many veterans failing the double dipper? Why did so many people fail the double dipper? In fact, I'll tell you right now, 26 people failed the double dipper in this year, which is a little more than a quarter of the field. So, you know, and that includes people who, like I said, cleared last year, like Joe Morosky and Flip Rodriguez. So, what's different this year? So, from what I'm able to gather, from what competitors have said, is that the big difference with the double dipper this year was that the second bar and track was actually pushed closer to the first track, so the gap between the two was actually shorter. Ironically, this, even though this would, in theory, make the double dipper easier, it actually made the double dipper harder, because a lot of people were coming in with so much speed and height and velocity and momentum and all that stuff that it was throwing them off when they were hitting the second bar, which is why you saw so many people go off track. And so that was like a real issue. In fact, if you notice, the landing platform is actually moved further away from the solid platform afterwards. So there's a noticeable gap in between the two, when last year there really wasn't. So it's it's been interesting seeing how something as simple as moving an obstacle can make in terms of difficulty. Anyway, next up was Kevin Bull. So they gave him a stats. They didn't give him a profile. They gave him stats. Akbar was behind him because he was like, oh, that's my coach, and so he had a bit of a worry midway through that he kept slipping on the jumping spider. His feet kept giving out on him, and he had about a minute left at the warped wall. But unfortunately, even though he had time left, he ended up failing the twist and fly. He just missed the cargo net, fell down. A little scary at first. There was a brief moment I thought he might have gotten stuck in the cargo net, but I'm very happy that that hasn't happened yet. So yeah, but sucks to see Kevin go out. I like Kevin, but unfortunately, just didn't work out this time. So then we got some fast forwards. Judas Licaderio failed the propeller bar. Abel Gonzalez failed the double dipper, and Mike Wright failed the jumping spider. Then we had Brian Kretsch. This was a weird profile. They had a whole profile piece about his face and how he, I guess his natural facial posture is like. I don't know if I'm even doing it right, to be perfectly honest, but the entire time they're talking about the Kretsch face, I kept thinking to myself, so Are you telling me that basically Brian Kretsch has resting face? If you're a kid, ask your parents what I'm censoring. And then Michelle Warnke towards the end of the profile, because they were interviewing all these other ninjas. Michelle calls it resting Kretsch face, and I'm like, oh my god, that's literally exactly what they're doing. They're literally calling it that. That's so bizarre. Anyway, this is Brian's 10th season. He is one of only 4 people to compete in all 4 seasons of American Ninja Warrior. And then shockingly, Brian went out on the propeller bar. I don't know exactly what happened, but it looked like he was being super aggressive, because basically he jumped on, grabbed the bar, and then tried to jump to the rope and then swing the rope to the platform, but like he missed the rope. And I don't know if he went for it or if he was slipping off. It was very bizarre. Very shocking to see him go out that way. And a bit sad. So, I don't know. I hope to see him again next year, but yeah, unfortunately that's it for Brian. And then we had Lucas Reala. So just want to say, Lucas is a very nice person. He's a good competitor. Made it to stage 2 of National Ninja League this year. I know for a fact that he watches my videos because he told me. So, Lucas, if you're watching, hey, how's it going? His profile was very, I mean, there's no other way to put it. It was definitely one of the darker profile pieces of the night. Basically, he was competing on the 3-year anniversary of his dad's, suicide, which is unfortunate. It's very sad. It's very, I want to make sure I kind of say this correctly. Like, obviously, it sucks. It's a really sad story. There's no real way to. I will say is that I felt like normally when it comes to these profiles, I tend to be hard on them partially because of how A&W presents these things, and because a lot of times they're like stories that like I personally feel like they don't really need to be told. After everything that happened, once I saw the full run, I understood why the story needed to be told the way it was. And I do think that A&W handled the story and the editing pretty respectfully. When it comes to these type of stories, I do get a feeling that like sometimes A&W tends to be a bit exploitive with the way they present these things. But in this case, I do feel like they handled it well. So I guess that's just kind of everything I wanted to say about the profile. I had no idea. I obviously I never imagined Lucas to like disclose this information to me randomly. So obviously I don't blame him for for me not knowing. I'll say this, like, dude looked good on the course. Like, this is one of those profiles where like it's actually genuinely hard to comment about just because like he ran pretty flawlessly. I'll say this, he had a minute left at the razor beams, which is pretty good. And basically he ended up clearing with 15.8 seconds left. He was moved to tears. He mentioned his father in his interview, and overall it was a feel-good moment. I know a lot of times A&W tries to go for these feel-good moments with like these stories and successes. I do think personally that in terms of the show, I don't think A&W tends to hit the mark correctly most of the time, but in this particular case, I think they handled the situation well overall. So I'm glad for Lucas. I'm glad A&W handled the story well with more respect, and so I'm happy. I'm glad. And I think they said Lucas is legit the youngest person to clear stage 1 in A&W history because he's like a little bit younger than Matisse, if I remember correctly. So yeah, good on him. I hope I kind of got my point across, because like usually when I'm criticizing stuff, I'm criticizing the show and not the people. So I didn't want to make it sound like I'm, Anyway, so for some fast forwards, Anna Schoonemaker unfortunately failed the Archer Alley. James Bartholomew failed the propeller bars. And I just want to say I'm really glad that I remembered that his name is Bartholomew, because when I was writing my notes, I kind of came to the realization that I don't know how to spell that name. So what I wrote, I'm not going to spell it out because I can't read it. Unfortunately, I was able to fortunately read myself. And then Carson Williams failed the Double Dipper, which is unfortunate. He's been to Vegas a bunch of times, but hasn't cleared stage 1 yet, so that's unfortunate. But then we had Eric Middleton. This was a good profile. Eric, I gotta say, Eric is pretty smart. Because when it comes to A&W, it's hard sometimes to get airtime. Sometimes you gotta come up with something that is marketable to the producers, and they'll give you airtime. Eric came up with these challenges that he produced. Eric came up with a brilliant idea. If he clears the course, the hosts eat bugs. And this time, if he cleared, Matt and Akbar had to eat gummied scorpions, which is basically scorpions in like this sugar concoction. I love this run. So what's interesting is he had his watch on him to keep track of time. Very smart. Very smart. It's a simple strategy. You can't always see a clock when you're on the course. If you got it right here on your watch, works perfectly. He had a minute left at the razor beams. I don't know what I wrote there. But he ended up clearing with 16 left. What's great about this run is that Matt and Akbar, especially Akbar, were like actively rooting against him. They were saying stuff like, "Oh, the course is tough, so we probably won't have to eat," or "Oh, those walls on the spider jump are pretty slippery," or to the point where like Akbar is basically like pleading for Eric to not clear. Matt is like, "Oh, I'm so confused because like I want people to clear, but I really don't want to eat the scorpion." It was great. The whole thing was great. This is the one that they put on YouTube as a preview. I just thought of something with the amount of runs that got cut, because there's a good amount of runs that got cut. I think it really would have been in their benefit to both last week and this week just pick 2 runs and put them on YouTube. Like they don't get, because they did that last year with stage 2. They did, I believe it was Kevin Bull and JJ Woods, if I remember correctly. They put their runs on YouTube. They never got TV time, but they put them on YouTube ahead of time. You can watch those. They could have just done that with some of the runs here instead of putting on runs that like we're going to be shown in the episode. That way you can preview the episode and not like spoil what you're going to do. So, yeah. Wish they didn't do that. Anyway, I'm sorry. Ooh, almost spoiled that. Next up, Lance Pekus. Basically they I almost forgot the best part of Eric Middleton's run. The best part of Eric Middleton's run was the reaction from the hosts eating the scorpions. Matt didn't care for it. Akbar was like, he looked like he was about to throw up. I am actually genuinely considering putting Akbar in my thumbnail. Like you're gonna have seen my thumbnail by now for the video, but I'm genuinely considering just putting the image of him going in the thumbnail because it's so great. I was laughing. It was great. Eric Middleton determined to turn Ninja Warrior into Fear Factor. I love it. I mean, heck, A&W is already doing it themselves with a certain Stage 2 obstacle next week, but we'll get to that later. Lance Pekus. His wife, basically the profile is about his wife, and that his wife's doing better, which is great. That's great. I like this way better than the profile from last year. Matt and Akbar wore cowboy hats. However, Lance Pekus went out on the propeller bar, shockingly. Similar to Brian Kretsch, it looked like he was being too aggressive. It's hard to tell because, like, in the replay, you see that, like, he kind of maybe had, like, a bad jump and, like, slipped off and tried to catch the rope. But it was very, it was so fast and so shocking, the way he went out. But yeah, unfortunately, an early exit for the Cowboy. And then Barclay Stockett. This was one of the two women left who I thought had an honest chance of clearing stage one. And I thought, like a lot of people kind of like talk about placements of the runs and stuff, and like honestly, like Barclay going here, the only thing that had me raise an eyebrow was the fact that it was in the same segment as Lance, but Lance went out so quickly, so I thought, maybe they have enough time to fit Barclay in. They definitely could. The fact that she wasn't last didn't like tip anything off, because like I honestly think that like they wouldn't have put, because they always put the fastest time last. So if a woman cleared and they put it in this episode, they wouldn't have done it. They could have done it at any point in time. You gotta keep people on their toes. But anyway, Barclay's profile is about how she's traveling the world, and it's great. And it's great. I'm glad for her. So for some reason, they showed the people on the side, and I saw Nick Burkhalter in crutches. I'm just like, what? How did this happen? I don't know the answer. I should have asked before I did this video. Is he? I don't think he's even on this. I don't remember if he qualified. There's a lot of names to remember, so I'm sorry. But basically, Barclay. What did I write here? Yeah, basically, Barclay unfortunately failed Jeep Run. She was the only person who failed the run-up section of Jeep Run. There wasn't a lot of people who failed Jeep Run to begin with, to be really honest. But basically, she was running up the tire. She got a little hung up, so she came to a complete stop on the final tire. And so she went for the jump for the steering wheel, and she missed. Cause, she's only 5 feet tall, unfortunately. If she was like an inch taller, she probably would have been able to grab the handle, but unfortunately, from a standing position, she wasn't able to get enough height. I was thinking about Jeep Run, because I think the obstacle is too easy, to be honest. I kind of thought about what would make it better in my mind, and I honestly think that those first 4 tires that you run up, I think it would be better if those tires spun. I think it would be better if they spun. But that's I make it that way. See, I think my problem is that the run up itself is not difficult. Yeah, you can get tripped up, but like no one's going to fail the run up, and no one's going to. You can just theoretically stop and save yourself. I want a run up that like you can't save yourself, and like for a rolling section to have spinning wheels, that would genuinely make the obstacle a lot harder, and that's kind of, I think that spot needs to be toughened up a bit. Anyway, in more fast forwards, Rico Rivera looked pretty good, but unfortunately he ran out of time and fell on Twist and Fly. And then David Campbell unfortunately kicked the second bar of the Double Dipper and fell in the water. And then, surprisingly, Chris Wilczewski got fast forward after a lot of prominence in Philadelphia episodes, but he still cleared, so I'm glad to see that. And then they had Nagi Richardson. Nagi, once again, getting the star treatment. I kind of mentioned that, like, he is, like, one step below top-tier A&W star. He is an A&W star. He's not top A&W star just yet. Maybe if he's like the last man standing or something this year, maybe he will be. He's almost there, but like the producers love him. He does well in the courses. Generally, he's going to get a lot of airtime in the future, and so his whole profile is just about how A&W's changed his life. He's getting TV time. He's on billboards. He's getting some roles and shows. He gets to teach kids and stuff and organize with charities. It's all great. And Nagi, once again, looking good. not really much to say. He had a minute left at the razor beams. Took a little extra swing on twist and fly just because he got a little twisted up on the second handles. But he grabbed high in the net because he's good at laches, as evidenced by his runs in Philadelphia. He's very good at laches. And he ended up clearing with 22.14 seconds. So good for him. And then we had Mike Murray, who, going to be completely honest, I don't really know who Mike Murray is. He's I think I said he was an oil guy. I didn't write it down. But this was the commercial run, and also bit of a shocker. So if you give me a second to complain about the commercial run presentation in this particular segment of time. So first off, at no point did they show the timer during his run. Like with Brian Arnold, first half didn't have a timer, but then they put it up. And then this one, they just straight up never showed the timer. I don't know. And then shockingly, I couldn't believe this happened. He cleared the course. You asked me to tell you what happened during his run. I honestly can't tell you because I admit that like I was kind of half watching because like I mean it's still a commercial. It's the run itself is partially covered. You got like these these ads talking to you. I saw like half of it. And all of a sudden, he's getting a twist and fly, and I kind of realized, like, when he grabbed the net, it sort of dawned on me that, like, the red lights aren't flashing yet. I don't know how much time is left, but the red lights aren't flashing yet. So I'm like, is he seriously going to clear? And then it turns out, yeah, he cleared. Like, holy crap. And this run isn't going to be seen if you watch it on demand. It's so bizarre that they put that run. I don't know, whatever. And then more fast forwards. Chris DeGangi took on the course, and the good news is he finally broke the streak of him and Jesse LeBrec having the same results on every course. Unfortunately, he broke it because he did worse by failing the double dipper. Also was RJ Roman, who cleared the course, and then Zach Day, who got digested because I'm going to guess okay, this is going to sound a little morbid, but I'm going to assume that the reason Zach Day got digested was because they didn't want two dad stories in the same episode getting profile pieces. I kind of thought, like, I remember seeing that and just thinking, like, maybe they should have put Zach Day in the first episode and kind of give him, a focus. Just kind of my thought. But he also cleared. So yeah, that was cool. And then came the Battle of the Beards. Basically, Brett and Ryan hatched this plan, partially just to get more airtime. So basically, Brett and Ryan, they tied each other both rounds in the Miami qualifier. So now it comes down to Vegas. Whoever goes further in Vegas gets to keep their beard. Brett went first, and he went off the double dipper. He only caught the second bar with one hand, and it caused him to slip right off. So then it was Ryan's turn. All he's got to do is beat Brett. I just realized that. I just realized I did a thing in my notes. But he ended up passing the double dipper, so Brett has to shave. But unfortunately, Ryan failed Jeep Run. He failed the landing wheel. But unfortunately, he fell sideways, and he hit the pad awkwardly. Hit, like, arm first, and it looked like he might have injured himself, and he actually had to be helped out of the water. If you look at his Instagram, you'll see that he was taken to the hospital to get some x-rays done. His shoulder is fine. No damage was done. There was a little bit of concussion concerns, but by all standards, it looks like he is okay. So that is good. That's good. Sucks that he failed there. But after the break, we got to see Ryan shaving Brett's beard with an electric trimmer, as per the rules. Then they had Kenny Niematalo. So once again, they did a whole spotlight about donating kidneys. So his run was very interesting because it mainly was defined by one moment, which is the double dipper. he was able to save himself with the landing of the double dipper. However, I believe it was his right ankle. Landed like right on the edge, so it kind of like got a bit twisted, and you could see throughout the rest of his run, he was favoring his right ankle. And he was moving very slowly through the rest of the course, and unfortunately for him, he timed out at the top of the net of the twist and fly. He had 43 seconds left at the warped wall, and that gives you an idea of how fast he was still able to go, because doing those last 3 obstacles in 43 seconds, not easy to do. But unfortunately for him, he ended up wasting a lot of time, I guess, on the Jeep run, leading up to the Jeep run, especially. He kept favoring his ankle, and that's unfortunately the reason why he failed. If he had a little bit more time, or more importantly, if he just didn't injure his ankle, he would have cleared, but he couldn't go faster, and he's out. And that sucks. Like, timing out at the very end has to be the worst feeling. Like, it's one thing to time out on the last obstacle. It's another thing to time out at the very end of the last obstacle. Like, when you're about to hit the button, essentially. He needed, like, 2 more seconds. He needed to be 2 seconds faster, but unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. And then, in perhaps the most shocking moment of the night, we got Nicholas Coolridge in a full featured run. Holy crap. This is a man who Matt Eisman obviously loves, because he was the first guest of the American Ninja Warrior podcast, and I imagine that was Eisman's reasoning, Eisman's call. He got a full profile talking about how he now lives in a garage instead of in his van, and we got to see his full run. He amazingly saved himself in the double dipper by catching the second bar with only one hand, and then he grabbed on the second hand. He started favoring his knee around the warped wall area. It seems like, I think it was Jeep Run, he like banged his knee. That wheel landing seems to be kind of knocking people loopy with like falling forward and hitting that landing pad. I'm not so sure about that after seeing a few people get a little bit worrisome. But at the end of the day, he still cleared with 8.13 seconds. Yay! Nicholas Coolridge moves on, and more importantly, he got airtime, so good for him. Then they showed an update with Brett Sims being clean-shaven, completely shaved off. And now you all look like when he first appeared on the Ninja Warrior scene, all the way back to American Ninja Challenge 1. And for those of you who don't know, American Ninja Challenge predates American Ninja Warrior. It was a contest held by G4 to determine who gets to go to Japan to compete on Sasuke. There were 4 editions of American Ninja Challenge before it got adapted into American Ninja Warrior. And Brett was the runner-up of the first American Ninja Challenge, but both him and the winner, Colin Bell, got to go to Japan and compete on it. So, if you want to see what Brett looked like back then, just look at the face, just imagine the shaved look that he has at the end of this episode, and with like American shorts. And that's basically what he looked like back then. Then we had a little preview of stage 2, 3, and final. Basically, check out next week on American Ninja Warrior. But hey, some more fast forwards. Jonathan Stevens, who I don't know why they haven't shown this kid and who he is, but he's supposedly this rookie who's having a real story, Cinderella story about clearing. He cleared stage 1 after clearing the qualifier and city finals. Apparently, what's going on? Who is this person? Tell us. Holy cow! They keep presenting as I'm baffled why they haven't featured this kid yet. It's so weird. Then Josh Salinas cleared, hooray! And then Brittany Hanks failed the propeller bar. Now they can't all be, good news. You gotta keep you on your toes. And then it was Meagan Martin, the last woman that was edited in to take on the course. I don't know if she was actually the last woman to run. We'll never know for sure. Her profile is how she keeps timing out on stage 1, which is a story that is mostly true. They conveniently leaved out the little story about AW8 when she failed the giant log rip. But let's just pretend that didn't happen. But yeah, in all seriousness, Meagan has a tendency to not be fast on the course, honestly. Sometimes I feel like she needs to pick up the pace, and part of it is because she's having difficulty on the warped wall. I got some comments I want to say about the warped wall towards the end. So the whole theme is that, oh, Meagan, can she clear this time? She probably can if she just manages her time better. This was a complete red herring on A&W's part, because unfortunately she ended up failing the jumping spider. She just didn't get deep enough. Which was, I was surprised when she failed, because she's cleared before. She's cleared a few times, but she didn't get deep enough on the jumping spider, and she slipped right out. And that whole profile is, I like profiles like that. If A&W did that more often, it'd be nice, because try to throw us off the scent, essentially have a second guess and stuff. So, but the problem is they only do it once, so that it's only shocking when they do it the one time, but most of the other times, I'm about to get to it in a little bit, but generally we can figure out what they do with the editing, because A&W rarely deviates from the formula that they established. Unfortunately, this means this year no women will be clearing stage 1. That is unfortunate. I talked about Jessie earlier, Jessie Graff more specifically, but yeah, unfortunately, these things happen, sometimes you get people clear, sometimes you don't, that's just how it is. And then, so some more fast forwards, the last fast forward segment of the episode, Drew Connaught cleared, hooray, with 24.68 seconds left. Thomas Stillings also cleared, and Hunter Garrard cleared with 16.32 seconds. And then we had Drew Drechsel, and this screams profile piece that was filmed after stage 1 was filmed, so they can generate this story. Basically, Drew's talking about how, oh man, all these veterans failed stage 1. I've beat stage 1 every year, but now I'm feeling the pressure. If you want to get super technical, technically Drew hasn't beaten stage 1 every year, because he competed in A&W 3, and in Sasuke 27 he unfortunately couldn't clear stage 1 because he injured his knee on the course. And since that is technically part of A&W, that means that he hasn't cleared stage 1 every time, but A&W wants you to forget that. If you want to say it correctly, you could say that Drew has cleared every version of the American version of Midoriyama, stage 1 specifically, in which case, that is true. But yeah, either way, he has a long streak of at this point of clearing stage 1. This would be the 7th Midoriyama, U.S. Midoriyama, and only one time Drew didn't qualify for Vegas, so that means 5 times he has cleared stage 1. Will this be the 6th? Yes, actually it would be the 6th. He had a minute and a half left at the warped wall. Drew's fast. They did this thing, so if I remember correctly, they put the clock on the screen for Drew's run. And so it's is he going to get the fastest time? Yes, he is. Because with the exception of one run, every time you put the clock on the stage, the person gets the fastest run at that point in time. You've done this every time. And this is kind of what I'm talking about how they don't do enough to keep the audience guessing. Do the clock thing more often, or more importantly, don't do it all sometimes. Maybe you should do that. It's weird, watching, if you don't know the behind the scenes stuff, you're probably wondering, because I was watching this with my father last night, and he asked me, is there any benefit to getting the fastest time of the night? And I'm like, technically, yeah, because even though the show doesn't tell you this, the fastest time for stage 1 gets to run last in stage 2, as per the rules of American Ninja Warrior. Now you can argue whether or not this is a good rule or not, but that's beyond the point. At least in this example. So yeah, but hey, shocking. Drew's good. Drew is good. And so he had 48.8 seconds left. And so the final run of the night went to Jake Murray. which is also what happened 2 years ago. Last time he was in Vegas, he was the final run of the night. And with all respect to Jake, Jake is a great guy, but like it was because they put Jake Murray at the end, it was very obvious he was going to get the fastest run of the night. Partially because when it comes to Vegas, they always put the fastest run of the night as the very last run. This is one of those formulaic things that, like, it's a little annoying. Like, this is one of the, like, I generally try not to compare A&W to Sasuke, because they are different shows at the end of the day. But this is, if there's one thing that Sasuke does better than A&W, is keeping you on the toes when it comes to the final run. When you watch the last stage 1 run of Sasuke, you don't even know if that person's going to clear. When I'm watching Jake Murray take on the course, I know he's going to clear, because it's the last run of stage 1 that they're showing on American Ninja Warrior. There's no way they're going to end it with someone failing, because they have never ended it with someone failing. They're all going to clear. They're always going to end in the clear. And he does. And he was great. He ended up having the fastest time of stage 1, 49 seconds left. He did a big cannonball off. What was one thing that was kind of funny, because, you know, Jake likes to do funny stuff, is that he had Grant McCartney as his caddy. Literally, Grant was on the starting line dressed up in caddy gear. He had a golf bag, and he was pulling out shoes to give to Jake. He had like golf shoes with like the cleats and stuff, so obviously that wasn't going to be good enough. Then he pulled out the running shoes and like, yeah, that's it. That's the good one. So yeah, Jake ran the course. Obviously, the shoes worked out in the end. Good run by him. Like, again, this is one of those runs where it's like, you know, it's what's kind of crazy is that the big difference between Jake and Drew of who got fastest was that Drew had a slight slip on the jumping spider. Basically, the spider walk portion, his legs gave out on him a little bit. He was able to cover. And that's the reason why Jake was 0.2 of a second faster. In my personal belief, that's the reason why. So yeah, that is crazy. So in the end, we finished with 30 finishers total. I've mentioned before that generally the A&W designers, according to them, they try to have 25% clear rate. So 30 out of 97, that's relatively close to a quarter, you know, technically a little more than 30%. So they were close to on the mark. And that's sort of like the weird thing, because like I was seeing some sentiments talking about like just how tough this course was, you know. And I certainly get why you would say that, but just because of how the show was presented. You see all these veterans. Because when you look at this list, there are a lot of names. There are definitely a bunch of names on this list of people who you wouldn't expect to be the ones who cleared stage 1. You know, because you expect people like Joe Morosky and Flip Rodriguez and Lance Pekus and Kevin Bull, but none of those people cleared. But yet you have a lot of newer names like you know, Eric Middleton and Lucas Reala and Zach Day and RJ Roman, who I think people maybe didn't necessarily expect to see them clear. Like no disrespect to RJ Roman, you know, he seems like a cool dude, but like if you had asked me if I thought he was going to clear stage 1, I never would have put him as like a person who I thought he was going to clear stage 1. I'm glad he did. I'm glad for all the people who cleared stage 1. But like that's just, I think that's kind of like my point I'm trying to make, is that like the reason this course might have seemed a little bit tougher is, or maybe too tough to some people, is just because not necessarily the amount of people who cleared, but just who cleared. A lot of like lesser known names. Felt like there was like more lesser known names that cleared, and the show really spotlighted the veterans failing early, especially on the Double Dipper. So I think that's something to keep in mind. Also, like they had to make the course harder this year because like 41 people cleared last year. That's too many. You can't have that many people clear. That's just too many. So what I have here is a list of all the runs according to A&W Nation. And I pointed out to people who unfortunately got completely cut from both episodes. As you can see here, everyone who's highlighted got cut. Unfortunately, that also means 3 clears got cut, because only, you know. So let's just go through some of the stats and I'll run through all the names of everyone who ran Stage 1. So, in this particular episode, we had 18 full runs shown and 18 fast forwards, and 15 clears were shown. Which means in total, between Part 1 and Part 2, we saw 38 full runs, 36 fast forwards, and 74 total runs, and 27 of the 30 clears were shown. And I just want to point out that this episode, much like the last episode, I maintain the feeling that the show is much more enjoyable when you have these faster courses with a time limit. Faster courses is way more enjoyable than courses that take 4.5 minutes to run. 4.5, 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes to complete, or 4.5 minutes to complete. 4.5. I mean that's already too long. God. I mean, could you imagine someone taking 4.5 minutes to complete a course? I know I can't. That's for sure. No way. No way. No way at all. Before I get to the actual list, I just remembered I want to talk about the actual Stage 1 course itself. Basically, I like the course overall. Like the show is enjoyable. Stage 1, by virtue of what it is very enjoyable to watch. But the course needs changes. I think one of the biggest changes they need to do is they need to move the warped wall further back. Too many people who make it to the warped wall, they tend to clear on their first try, no problem. I think if you put the warped wall in the 7th position, it will be a tougher obstacle because they would have done more obstacles first. Tire them out a bit. And make the warped wall, make the warped wall more challenging once again. I've said this before last week, but A&W, they're stuck in their ways too much. They're stuck in this, the Sasuke 27 blueprint that they have adopted, and so they need to adjust that for the future and come up with. Stage 1 needs a makeover. I don't know if we get a winner this time around, but Stage 1 needs a makeover. It needs a complete makeover. We never got that makeover after A&W 7, that total renewal, as we like to refer to as Sasuke fans. Again, I generally don't try to compare to Sasuke, but with Sasuke, every once in a while you would see radical changes on the course, different philosophies as far as course design. A&W is stuck with the same philosophy for 7 years now. I think the course Stage 1 needs a change. And so what I would do is I would put the warped wall further back. I would get rid of the cargo net, replace it with something else to climb. I would move the balance obstacle closer. I would make a better balance obstacle than the razor beams. The razor beams were just kind of worthless, but maybe if you put them up earlier, you get more people to fail the balance obstacle. Honestly, get rid of the Jeep run, Sonic Curve, parkour run, half pipe attack obstacle. It's outdated. Come up with something different. Come up with a different concept. If you want to keep the jumping spider, that's fine. I like the jumping spider. At the same time, I wouldn't be mad if they got rid of it just to, change things up. The propeller bar needs to go. I cannot stress this enough. Get rid of the propeller bar. It is useless. It is worthless. As a viewer, to me, that obstacle is completely worthless. I know 10 people failed it. I don't care. It's largely because it's an early obstacle. Get rid of it. Archer Alley is fine. It's a new obstacle. It's cool. It's unique. It's different. I'm fine with keeping that. The Double Dipper, you gotta change that landing platform to be more safe. I don't want people breaking their ankles or spraining their ankles or anything like that. And also you gotta make sure that people really don't fall off the track, because that's really as a viewer, I don't because I think a lot of people were watching the Double Dipper this year, and seeing people fall off the track the way they do. And I imagine people really sort of wonder if the obstacle's fair. Like, are they falling off because of the competitor, or is it something wrong with the obstacle? I think, something needs to be changed to the Double Dipper if you're going to keep it. Because, I like the Double Dipper. It's a cool obstacle. It is still, even though people got injured this year, it's still an obstacle I would want to try myself. But, I don't know, adjust it so that people aren't flying off the obstacle, something's got to change. When I say flying off the obstacle, I mean falling, the bar is going off the track. So figure something out about that. And finally, the timeline was fine. I think this time around, maybe 5 seconds shorter, maybe. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. Twist and fly as an obstacle is fine, but I want them to get rid of the cargo and replace it with something else. So you might have to change up the lead up. I have ideas, but that's for another time. But yeah, stage 1. I like watching stage 1, but my God, it is time for a change. And honestly, if you asked me, I can only make one change to stage 1. What would it be? It would be to get rid of the propeller bar. Just get rid of the propeller bar. That I hate that obstacle so much. Get rid of it and replace it with an obstacle that does not require the trampoline. So yeah, if I had one ability to change stage 1, that would be it. But let's talk about some runs, the full list. So, full results of stage 1. We had 6 people fail the Archer Alley in the form of Alyssa Beard, Anna Shoemaker, Emily Durham, who unfortunately was cut from TV, Kyle Shozy, Michelle Wonky, and Zanika Levitt, who was also cut. Propeller Bar, we had 10 failures. Brad Spine, who was cut, Brian Kretsch, Brittany Hanks, Drew Henry, who was cut, James Bartholomew, Jerry DeRulio, Josh Norton, who was cut, Judas Lucadario, Lance Pekus, and Nick Patel. And then we had 26 people fail the Double Dipper, and those people were Abby Clark, Abel Gonzalez, Booty Cothran, Brett Sims, Krista Ganji, Danny Bergstrom, David Campbell, Derek Miyamoto, who was cut, Elliot Jolvavette, Eric Nelson, who was cut, Flip Rodriguez, Jeremiah Morgan, who was cut for some reason, Joe Morosky, Karsten Williams, Logan Craiglow, who was cut, Matt Strollo, who was cut, Michael Borger, who was cut, Michael Johnson, Neil Craver, Philip Huckey, who was cut, Rachel Goldstein, Rigel Henry, Spencer Clapp, who was cut, Todd Bourgeois, who was cut, Travis Rosen, and Tyler Yamauchi. Then we had 12 people fail the Jumping Spider, with Brian Rambo, Dave Kavanagh, who was cut, dude, what the heck? Gavin Rose, who was cut, Ian Dory, James McGrath, Kevin Jordan, who was cut, Matthew Day, Meagan Martin, Mike Wright, Sharon Darling-Hammond, who was cut, Thomas Coffrin, and Trevor West, who was cut. Then we had 3 people fail Jeep Run in the form of Barclay Stockett, Davon Hancocks, and Ryan Stratus, which is, hey, that's 3 more than the parkour run last year, so I'll give it that. We had 0 people time out at the Warped Wall, and 0 people failed the Razor Beams, which is more reason to get rid of that obstacle. And then we had 10 people who failed the Twist and Fly. Alex Carson, Andrew Swinghammer, who was cut, Brent Stephenson, who timed out, Brian Arnold, Jesse LeBrecq, John Alexis Jr., Kemi Niematalo, who timed out, Kevin Bull, Nick Hansen, who timed out, and Rico Rivera. And finally, we had 30 people clear the course. Here's the full list of everyone from fastest to slowest. Jake Murray, Drew Drechsel, Matisse Awahi, Daniel Gill, Austin Gray, Drew Knapp, Adam Rail, Josh Salinas, Tyler Gillette, Nagi Richardson, RJ Roman, Ethan Swatson, Carson Voiles, Sean Bryan, Josh Levin, Hunter Garrard, Eric Middleton, Lucas Reale, Mike Myers, who was cut, and for some reason has been cut this entire season, what the heck? Thomas Stillings, Brian Burkholt, who was cut, Angel Rodriguez, who was cut, Jonathan Stevens, Chris Wilczewski, Dan Polizzi, Nicholas Coolridge, Jamie Ron, Mike Murray, Zach Day, and Casey Suhaki. And with that, I am done. Just a little bit less than an hour, but I imagine this video will be over an hour by the time I edit it. Maybe not. We'll have to see how much preamble and post-amble I do. But that is all of my thoughts on American Ninja Warrior Stage 1, Part 2, and a little bit of Part 1 thrown in. What did you think? Let me know. Did you like Stage 1? Let me know. Did you like the way this episode was edited? Were you surprised that there was no female clears? And for those of you who have no idea what's about to happen, who do you think is most likely to become the last man standing? Because for those of you who don't know, even if there's no winner, the person who goes the furthest will win $100,000. That's a lot of money. So we'll have to see what happens. I am looking forward to next week. Yes, I am absolutely looking forward to next week. I am in no way scared about what is about to happen in Stage 2. I have absolutely no idea what the course looks like. I have no idea what the time limit's going to be. And there is absolutely nothing about the course that could potentially be worrisome or will make me potentially rant and rave next week. Nope, absolutely nothing at all. But either way, next week is the season finale of American Ninja Warrior. Stage 2, Stage 3, and if necessary, the final stage will all come to a head. We'll find out what happens, and my God, it's going to go down. We'll have to see what happens, and hopefully I'll like it. But for now, only positive thoughts. Stage 1 was good, and I enjoyed these past 2 episodes, and I wish more of A&W was like this. And if it was like this, I like A&W a lot more than I do. And I do like A&W. I just want sometimes, it was better. But I like A&W. I just want to stress that part. I like A&W. Especially A&W Stage 1. This was so much fun. These past 2 weeks have been so much fun. I'm enjoying myself. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching. I'll see you next time for the season finale of American Ninja Warrior Season 10. Oh my God, I am so hoping I don't get angry. Oh God. I am so scared. Oh God. Oh. Bye everyone.